Good morning, everyone. I just want to see if I can find those last few lines. It was such a beautiful whispers reading, so perfectly actually attuned to the reading today, at least how I read it or interpreted it, but I could read the whole thing again, but I won't. But I love this last couple of sentences here where Master wrote, "With infinite patience, I went on tuning my radio. At last, when I was almost prepared to give up further trying, thy song burst upon my heart. Oh, let me broadcast through my every word now the chorus of thy songs." Really such a beautiful statement about not giving up, about the effort that we make, and that just stunning image of thy song bursting on our heart. Thank you for that. I just love that. Yeah. Everybody's so tuned in this morning. I asked Premi if she wanted to give this talk when we went back between purification and now, because she spoke very beautifully this morning during purification, and I have no idea if she even read the reading. It almost doesn't matter because people just tune in. That's what happens when we're on this path for a while, and we don't maybe know what's going to be said. I know this happened with Keshava about a month ago. It was like, did he read this reading? He told me later, no. So I don't know about Premi, but she shared with us a little bit about what is called a house concert that happened on Friday night, means literally in the house, which is Chela Bhavan, the big house in the community. A lot of singers and musicians get together and they just share music. I wasn't able to be there Friday night, though. I've been before. And often the people who are singing or playing are not necessarily the singers that we most often see up here. So they've had a little less practice of being up in front of everyone. Premi said, everything in me was saying, I don't want to do this. But she did, and went on to speak about what a beautiful experience and opportunity it was for her. But what she said that was so just beautiful and deep was that she realized, whether there or before, that the God and the gurus would sing through her. She didn't say it exactly like this, but I think it's close enough. And that the people, her friends, her guru bhais who were out there, that's what she saw. It was God singing to God. And she really, I felt when she was speaking here, that she was able to take herself to that place that this reading is so clearly about. And that is, how can we remove ego? How do we get beyond it? Because there, as always, this is true. Every week there's so many threads that we could pick the readings up by and speak to. But if we look at this week, the thieves and the robbers not being the other great teachers who were not quite avatars and who were trying to not as much give divine energy to people as much as get something for themselves, because that's at first who Swamiji alludes to. Let me get some water. But if we look at it, that the thieves and the robbers for right now is what robs us of freedom is our ego, clearly. It's always the ego being that aspect of ourselves that stands between us and God and us and everyone else. It's not the part of ourselves that Premi was talking about where she felt, she didn't mean this arrogantly, like it was a symphony of divine angels coming through her, though it may well have been. But she could feel God singing through her. She let go of that place of tension and anxiety and angst, which does not allow that. That's ego, and it gets in our way, and we can never do anything perfectly then. But it's exactly what she was speaking about, and that would have been the thief and the robber, except I think not only her, but I've spoken to a few other people about Friday. Everybody felt that. People just said it was so much fun. Everybody did such a great job. As I've been listening to it, was it recorded? No. As I've been listening to the stories about it, I could just feel the way that energy was flowing into, through, out, being received by everybody. Divine energy. It really actually had that feeling. And that just is so lovely, that there was an experience of what Swamiji is so thoughtfully trying to share with us, and which, by the way, is just simply not easy, like so many things on the spiritual path. Essential, because it's where we're headed. We are headed towards Christ consciousness, towards that kind of freedom. And yet the ego, at a certain point, becomes a barricade for us. What's Swamiji's phrase here? He says, the ego is the way station on our way to enlightenment. So beautiful. This is right from the reading. So beautiful how he says that, because we actually need the ego to be able to feel compelled to do better. So when we're floating around in the astral plane and deciding which body we're going to come into, we are motivated by a desire to do better. Swamiji says in the Raja Yoga teachings that all of the souls who are in the astral plane, who really want to make spiritual progress, they're eager to come back to this level of existence because, and most of us know this, we have a lot of opportunity to make spiritual progress here, a lot. So we need the ego to say, yes, there's more, go for it. Then at some point, it becomes a block. At some point, it goes from being that which is inspiring us to that which gets in our way. And a lot of what this reading is about, it's saying, see God as the doer in everything. Well, as I started to say, yes, it's the truth. It's the only truth. But boy, is it challenging. There's a story, a whole chapter in the autobiography of a yogi that I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's a long and delightful story. But there's a man whose name is Afzal, and he meets a Hindu saint who decides to give him a boon in the form of a disembodied being who could always give him anything he wants. But the saint who's giving him this boon says to him, you have very challenging karmic pattern here that you've come into in this life. And you have to be very careful to not use this power, because this being that I'm going to send your way, he can give you anything you want, anytime you want it. You just call him, Hazrat, bring me a beautiful meal. Hazrat, bring me new clothes. Hazrat, take my friends on a great trip. Instantly, everything happens. But be careful that you use this for the good of everyone and not for personal gain. Well, fast forward, Abzul does exactly the opposite, and he becomes more and more and more delusional based on his desire. This, just what the Gita says, this delusion that if we just fulfill a desire, we'll be happy. Now, this story's exaggerated for our benefit, but not really so much. We all live with that to some degree. If I just take care of this desire, I'll be happy and the desire will go away. No, this is what the Gita reading says. The more that you try and fulfill a desire, the more it leads you to delusion, other than the desire to know God. And so you just get yourself more and more into trouble, which he did. And he used this boon so that anything he touched, anything, would disappear from wherever it was. Jewelry stores, clothing stores, huge numbers of tickets for a train. He would touch it, they would be there, he would leave, and then the jewelry would disappear, the tickets would disappear. So he became feared by everyone in, I think this was in either Kolkata or Shrimpur, one or the other. And people just wanted to lock the door when he came. Anyway, at one point he's walking down the street and he sees this old, crippled man. After Sri Yukteswar has shared with Master Yogananda, this little boy, story after story after story of how Abzul just kept going further and further away from truth. And he sees Abzul, this crippled man walking down the street, old man with a cane, but the ball of the cane where his hand is solid gold. And the man is saying to him, help me, please help me. I can't walk, I have no food. And he's saying to him, but please don't take he doesn't know who he is supposedly. Please don't take my cane. It's the only thing I have. Not just of value, but I need it to walk. And of course, Abzul touches it and the gold disappears. And then this man, this old crippled man, suddenly looks at him, says to him, don't you recognize me? And lo and behold, it's the teacher who originally gave him this boon. And he says to him, I told you, only do that which is good, that which is away from ego, that which will free you. But you did exactly the opposite. And not only did you strengthen your ego, but you hurt so many people. Anyway, Abzul swears he's going to go up into the mountains, live the rest of his life alone, and never do another harmful thing. And as far as we know, he did that. The saint says, I trust you. You sound sincere. You do have some past good karma. So the only boon you get now is if you need food or clothing. And he takes off up into the mountains. But Master Yogananda tells in the autobiography of a yogi, story after story after story about how people can't stay. Even these are masters, these are highly evolved souls, and they can't stay true to the path. The ego has such a hold on us. So we shouldn't be afraid of that, but it just says it takes effort. We know that. It takes a lot for us to stay clear. So we're talking about trying to get rid of ego, and we're looking at it from the perspective of what is a true Christian. That's the title of the reading. And one of the stories that came to mind is that I was not there, but I've heard Anandi tell the story of when Swamiji's mother died, and many people went to the Episcopal church that she was a part of for the funeral service. And, these are people of many different backgrounds. Christians, many Christians, a lot of Jewish people, all of whom has made up this melting pot of self-realization, everybody. So a whole group went with Swamiji, and nearing the end of the service, the priest starts saying, who can come up and take communion? And he looks around and he sees this whole group with Swamiji. This is Anandi telling the story. And he's doubtful about these people because they don't exactly look like some of the other Episcopalian people. So he says, so those of you who would come up would be, and he explains who can take communion. In other words, who is a true Christian? So everybody's with Swamiji. Most of them get very nervous. But when it's time for communion, Swamiji stands up. A few others do, but most don't because they think, I don't think I'm not worthy to take this communion. And Nandi said, as soon as Swamiji had them outside, he said to them, don't ever let anybody tell you who is a true Christian. That doesn't belong to a church. That belongs to each individual soul. And every soul who's moving towards Christ consciousness. It's not about a path or the church. If you're moving towards Christ consciousness, then you are, in fact, a true Christian. And you should remember that. That's actually a very beautiful definition. I've shared the story, just a brief version of it, when I was seeing a patient once at Kaiser, and he looked at me and he said, are you a Christian? I was the doctor, he was the patient. And it really took me by surprise. Nobody had ever asked me that, A. B, I was born and raised Jewish. We didn't really think of ourselves as Christian. It just threw me. So I said to him, let's deal with the medicine and then we can talk. As soon as we were done, okay, you'll take this medicine, you'll go for this x-ray. I come back into the room, he says to me, so, are you a true Christian? And I said, yeah, not a true, but a Christian. I said to him, yes, I actually am a Christian. And he said, oh, so you believe, and he went on, Jesus Christ was the only living Son of God. And I said, no. And I had said to him, I am a Christian, but I don't think you're going to think I'm a Christian. So as soon as I said, no, I don't believe that, and he just looked at me and goes, how did you know I wouldn't believe you? Because what is a true Christian to the vast majority of people has nothing to do with how we are taught about what it means to live in terms of really what we're talking about, living in terms of Christ's teachings, living not in any delusion, but of having, because we are seeking now, we've passed that point where the ego is going to hold us back. We are those folks. I had a really interesting experience last night. I got a little sick about midnight, woke me up out of sleep. Anyway, I'm perfectly fine, but it kept me up all night. So at some point, I realized that Jyotish and Devi were going to be giving service in Assisi. So it must have been 2, 3, 3:30. I don't know what time it was in the morning, whatever time their service starts. So I tuned in. It was a really weird thing. I'm watching them give the service for tomorrow, but they're already giving it. It was very strange. It messed with my mind. But anyway, Joe Tisch started speaking, and he was talking about this. This is the first story he told. It's the only story I'll tell you, so you can watch their service. But he said, he's looking over at the musicians. He said, if the harmonium and the guitar and the cello were there, and they were saying, the harmonium says, I can really carry the melody. And the guitar says, yeah, but I have the rhythm. And then the cello says, but I'm the loudest and the most moving. He said, wouldn't surprise you because they're not self-conscious yet. Like we're going to read in our festival, at what point does self-consciousness, little s, come into play? That's where we need our ego. He said, but if the musicians, and he called them by name, Ricardo and whoever else was there, said, I'm the best because I'm on harmonium, and I'm the best because I'm on guitar. He said, you would think to yourself, what? Because we're beyond that. We're beyond that. We're no longer looking to feed our ego. We don't want to feed the thief and the robber. We're trying to do everything that we can to get beyond that and to get ourselves out of delusion, not further into it. But Swamiji also makes one other very good point. I don't think it's not in this reading. He says every bit of karma, every time we let the ego carry us, we have to come back to this school, this earth school, to resolve that karma. He said, say like you really wanted a great car that could go as many miles as you wanted it to go. He was probably already tuned into electric cars when he wrote that, but like infinite fuel. He said, why would you go to stay in an astral plane where people just float around without vehicles? They are the vehicle, Swamiji says. So we have to keep coming back here. So in other words, it's not bad that we're here at all. It's a gift. It's a joy that we're here. The question is, how are we going to use this time to resolve all of this? I just share one more little thing with you. We all remember the story when Swamiji was living with Yogananda, and he went down. He was asked to play the part of Jesus in a play. When he came back, Yogananda said to him, as many of us at least remember, I heard you really looked like Jesus. Swamiji had a beard, and I'm sure it was his consciousness, actually, that was having him look like Jesus. Swamiji said to Master, I'd rather be like Jesus than look like him. And I've often thought about, and I've said it here before, these stories that Swamiji would tell us over and over and over. Why did he do that? And it came to me when I was thinking about this last night that Master could say that to any of us. And of course, he said it to Swamiji, who was as highly evolved as he was, but the truth remains that will come, that I want to be Jesus. I want to be like him, not look like him. So there is the goal that we have. That's what we're aiming for. That's why we need to pay attention. We receive help with our ego through our teachings, through our readings, through all that we do. And I wanted to mention at this point this extraordinary book that Swamiji wrote some years ago, I don't know how many, but called Sadhu Beware. It's the subtitle is a new approach to renunciation. But he has a whole chapter in here on techniques of ego transcendence. And when I pulled it out last night, because that's what we're talking about, of course, there's such simple things. It's pretty amazing. There's 30 of them. I'm not going to read 30. But for instance, when people fail to credit you for something you did and did well, say nothing, he says. In your heart, give all the credit to God. I started thinking, as I read some of these, if someone scolds you for something you didn't do, you may see some good reason for letting him know that you're not guilty. If it doesn't really matter who did it, you'll gain more spiritually if you say nothing. Now, it just goes on. There's 30, as I said. And I started thinking, and they're not easy. Have you ever tried to just be still and quiet when somebody's blaming you for something you didn't do? I mean, since I know this before, many times it's like an effort to keep my lips closed. I'm not going to say, but I didn't do it, they did it. Or there you go, that word. Something comes through me, an inspiration, comes through all of us. We're open, that's what's happening. And something wonderful happens. And then I'll get an email that say, whatever, wow, Lakshmi and Sai Ganesh did such a beautiful job. And you want to go, but, no. It's very hard to catch yourself all the time. I remember years ago, 20 probably, David Gamow said to me one day, you say I too much. We don't say I at Ananda. We say we. And when I left his house, I thought, he's right. He's absolutely right. And to a large degree, I have practiced that since maybe it was only 18 years ago, but it was a long time ago. Practice, to take these, because how else are we going to do it? We see saints having trouble with it. So what if we just took one of these a week and we just read it every morning the way we do with affirmation? And we said, Swamiji wrote this up as techniques of ego transcendence. And he specifically says, I don't want to turn this into one of my little secrets books where you just read one a day. He doesn't want that. He said, live them as they come up. Beautiful guidance, really beautiful. So, we're on a path. We know what we want. We know where we're going. We also know, no matter how artfully we try and deny the ego, sometimes with a but or and, it's here. It's here for all of us to varying degrees, of course. So let's just renew our commitment today to do just what Premi did. Everything is God flowing through us. This music, I'm not making it. It's God. It's God singing to God. That's got to make beautiful music and uplift hearts. And like the last line of what David read, your beautiful music burst of my heart. It's so not the exactly perfect, beautiful words, but close enough. Or read one of these techniques of ego transcendence. Swamiji bothered to write them out in what is actually a very sacred book, A New Approach to Renunciation. So, and sadhu beware, he's saying, these are some of the things you need to watch out for. Here, I'll list them for you, 30 of them. Practice them. So I leave not just you, but myself, all of us, with that, maybe a new practice that we can add and a new way to help ourselves move towards inner freedom and Christ consciousness.
Let's take these inspiring words and to a very brief meditation. some music.
There aren't many better ways to overcome the ego than to stand in front of anybody and sing for them. So I thank you for the opportunity. That was the purpose in part of our house concert on Friday night. There lived a tender maid in a far-off country. The strangeness of this world made her sigh. Her friends asked their fathers for money and clothes, but all she could ask was, why? She saw the solemn clouds gathered watching a rainbow. The bright rays of their joy filled the sky. Her teachers explained it all wisely away, but still her heart wondered, why? She saw the silent stars thrill the night with their gladness. They seemed some wondrous truth to imply. Her elders all slept, but the magic of light awoke her to ponder, why? She saw a mother smile as she tended her baby, a widow weep that love had to die. The joy of new friends and the sadness of parting, all these made her ask God, why? One night into her heart stole the secret of oneness, the bond not even time can untie. For love then possessed her and made her his own. In love she at last learned why.